Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. Today, let's talk about what's going on when it comes to this hantavirus. There is a cruise ship that is stuck in the middle of the ocean. I'm going to share with you some videos from the public, what they're saying about it. So far, from what I know, 3 people have passed away, and recently someone passed away, I believe they've contracted it in France and in Switzerland. I know that a couple passed away. I had never heard of the hantavirus. The first time I had heard about it was Gene Hackman, rest in peace to him, legendary Hollywood actor. His wife, I believe her name was Betsy, she passed away of hantavirus last year. He had dementia and he didn't know that she had passed away, but they say that it comes from rats and rodents, like a rat bite or the saliva. And now they're saying, no, this is passing from human to human contact. So it is very serious. A lot of countries have closed off. They will not let people off the cruise ship. They won't let the boat dock. They're like, nope, we don't want this up over here. People are saying that it's worse than COVID if something like this spreads, and they have to quarantine you for about 2 months. So there are people who have, it's more than what you're hearing about. You don't hear too much so far, but look, you see on the screen, I have Outbreak, Contagion. These films were scary and amazing, and we don't want something like that to happen, but it is very serious. You know, the CDC is watching, researchers and doctors who do not want this to spread because it is spreading human to human contact. So again, the hantavirus, but they're saying that is actually the Andes virus. It's a common cause of the hantavirus, and it's usually found around South America. And we know that the boat was around Argentina, from what I hear. And it says that it's spread through mice and rats and everything, and that it causes asymptomatic persistent infections and is spread through excursions, fighting, and grooming. Humans can become infected by inhaling arsenals that contain rodent saliva, the spit, the urine, the feces, as well as through bites and scratches in humans. The infections can lead to HPS, an illness characterized by early phases of mild and moderate symptoms such as a fever, headache, and fatigue, sudden respiratory failure. There's a 40% fatality rate. So yes, it is definitely serious, and I can't, oops, excuse me, y'all, and I can't imagine what they're going through on the boat. Seriously. Imagine what they're going through being stuck on the boat, not knowing if they're going to catch this. So we don't want something like this happening again, outbreak or anything like that. So let me be quiet now and let's look at what the public is saying about all of this.
And that's right, or that motherfucker needs to stay. I'm telling you right now, don't dock that ship. Do not dock that ship. My God. That's their home now. That's where you live until it is 1000% verified that nothing's coming off that ship. We can't do another pandemic right now. Come on. Seriously? Do we not remember how the last one went? RFK Jr. and Dr. Oz would be the ones who would be responsible for containing this. Let me say that again. RFK Jr. and Dr. Oz would be the people in charge of trying to handle this.
Call me a cold-hearted bitch, but what is this?
I am currently on board the MV Hondius, and what's happening right now is very real for all of us here. A lot of uncertainty, and that's the hardest part. All we want right now is to feel safe, to have clarity, and to get home.
Here's the problem I'm having with this video. You can tell by his eyes that he's reading something that was prepared before he started making the video. He's reading it and speaking into the camera. Where the disconnect is that the emotions he's trying to convey is what I would expect from somebody being forced to read the ransom demands of a hostage taker who is holding them at gunpoint. It's actually quite simple and logical. When there is an illness aboard a ship, you quarantine the ship until the illness is gone. For the greater good. Period, end of story. Why the fuck are we crying?
Something does not sit right to me about this whole cruise ship situation. How is it that we get one video from that passenger on board who was crying and seemed nervous, but it almost feels like he's reading something?
We're not just a story. We're not just headlines. We're people. People with families, with lives, with people waiting for us at home. There's a lot of uncertainty. And that's the hardest part.
We're not just a story, we're not just headlines. Kind of almost looks like he's looking somewhere else as he's talking. And my question is, with 150 people on board and 3 confirmed people who have passed already from this virus, how is it that we're not getting more footage from other people from what's going on inside the ship? I don't know, this whole thing kind of seems off to me. I'm not saying anything for sure, but let me know what you guys think.
Rats and rodents didn't just start pooping and peeing on things yesterday. Where in the fuck did this virus really come from? Rats and rodents, if rats and rodents were passing around the virus, why is New York still here? Literally, they have rats on the subway, all on the seats, all around the poles. Don't you think by now someone would have contracted this and we would have been spreading this shit like no tomorrow? Like, come on, man. We gotta start using our cognitive thinking here. Rats and rodents are in all kinds of industry in this country. Do you know how many restaurants in the United States have rats and rodents? Do you know how many schools have rats and rodents? Do you know how many places, warehouses that have food that have rats and rodents? Where do you think that this shit really came from? Why is it that every time this man gets in the office, we have some sort of an outbreak? Some random ass virus that just pops up with no vaccine that's killing people maliciously. Did you guys not remember the cruise ships that were sitting there during COVID? Come on, man. It's like...
Here's a couple fun facts about the hantavirus. Its incubation period can last up to 8 weeks, generally between 2 and 6. What that means is, from the time you're exposed to this virus to the time you start showing symptoms can be 2 months. If people on that ship are just now showing symptoms, we can easily say in the next week to 2 weeks, even more people are going to start showing symptoms that aren't on that boat. If this was truly a human-to-human transmission, that means somewhere else in the world right now, somebody else is also carrying it, spreading it to somebody else. Now, fortunately, it's not highly contagious like the flu or COVID, but because of the world's economy, many of us are living in shared apartments, shared homes, in close contact with other humans. Then we all go to work. Another fun fact about the hantavirus is it's classified as a level C biothreat, which is pretty high up there, A, B, C. That's the 3rd level, meaning that if somebody knows what they're doing, they can weaponize the hantavirus, causing a mass pandemic. And what better way to do that than through a cruise ship? The more you know.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but based on what I'm reading, I don't know if it's accurate or not. I mean, I've just been going by different sources that are saying this, but all of them are collaboratively agreeing on this. Those people have already docked before they realized that they had the hantavirus. Like, they had already been on land. And if that's the case, like that, I mean, you're talking like sometimes the symptoms can't appear for 8 weeks. So like everyone that's saying just keep them on the boat, I agree. Like, isolation now. But I don't know how much of a difference it's going to make. They've already been on land whilst infected. And then the people that got off of the boat and were in the emergency room, passed away, things like that, they've been you know what I'm saying? Like, they've been taken off the boat. So that's not scary or anything. They don't know if it's, from what I was reading, like they don't know if it's human transmission. I guess that is still really rare, but there is a strand of it that is, and they think that that is the strand that's going around. So I don't know if any of y'all are paying attention to this, if you guys are ignoring it, thinking that this is just, it'll go away. I don't know, like, as somebody that's a little concerned with what happened with COVID, this might not be good.
Oh my God, I just looked this up. This video is not to scare anybody, but also not only did I look up the facts about this rare form of hantavirus, but also I looked up the whole entire timeline of the ship. Listen to this. So there is a particular strain of hantavirus that is rare, that is spread person to person, and it is often found in Chile and Argentina. This ship was from Argentina. That's where everybody got on the boat March 20th. It was part of a 35-day Southern Atlantic excursion. They passed through Antarctica. They passed through, is it called South St. George Island or something like that, Georgia Island, other small islands in the Southern Atlantic. Yes, people got off the boat to do excursions and stuff like that. Then on April 11th, a 70-year-old man got really sick and died. Doctors on board did not know that he had the hantavirus when he died. So then, April 12th through the 20th, the ship docks at St. Helena, which is like a very remote British island, and they take the body of this 70-year-old man off, and also his wife. She gets hospitalized in Johannesburg, South Africa, because she is now sick. They still do not know at this point that it's the hantavirus, right? Shortly after the wife's arrival in Johannesburg at the hospital, she dies. Then, on April 27th, the ship docks at Ascension Island. Mind you, nobody knows that there's the hantavirus on the ship at this point. But they have a second person who is very sick, so they get that person off the ship at Ascension Island. That person winds up dying in the hospital there, and that is the first lab-confirmed positive test that it is hantavirus. This person died from hantavirus. And all the while, people have been allowed off the ship to do excursions, except for right now. They're not allowed off at Cape Verde, but they got off at Ascension Island, they got off at St. Helena, some of the others that they stopped at that aren't as populated, but it sounds like it's human to human transmission. I know that everyone's saying but there's this, look it up. Don't take my word for it. Look up what I just said.
In 2025, there was a suspected outbreak of the Andes strain of the hantavirus from June to November in Argentina that killed 59 people. And I think 200 something got infected. So this is a separate strain. But it is the Andes virus, or the Andes strain does involve human to human contact. Not a separate strain, same strain, different outbreak, with an incubation period of 6 to 8 weeks. And the outbreak wasn't confined to Argentina. It affected 8 South American countries, but Argentina was like the hotspot.
Those people that are stranded on that ship with the hantavirus breakout need to stay on that ship until they figure it out. Because I hate to say it, but we don't have our best and brightest minds on the case at the moment. And we need to nip this shit in the bud before it gets out of control.
I watched the TikTok of the young man crying, saying he wanted to come home stuck on that cruise ship that has hantavirus. It is heartbreaking. It is devastating. And I have since seen so many videos of content creators saying you need to stay on that ship. And I will say I am going to agree that you need to stay on that ship because my parents were quarantined on the Holland America cruise line that was stuck in the South China Sea in 2020. They were stuck out at sea for like 2 weeks. It was very scary. They were finally allowed to dock in Cambodia and they came home. And my father was the first person in North Carolina to be tested for COVID. We were quarantined in our house in February of 2020 before the country shut down. They came in full hazmat suits because they didn't know what they were dealing with. And they tested my dad while sitting on the porch because they didn't even want to come into our house. It is not a joke. And I know nobody thinks it's a joke, but it is. We do not have the administration. The current dictator in office does not care about us. Millions and millions of Americans will die, and millions of people in this country will die if we have another spread of. Those people cannot get off that ship.
That cruise ship with that virus on, I just came across a video of a guy who's like trapped on the boat and he's like, oh my god, get me off the boat, I'm healthy, and he's crying, he's like really scared, and I get that. I'd be fucking terrified, and I'm like, oh god, I'm praying for him, but I'm gonna need you to stay on that fucking boat. I'm gonna need you to stay on that fucking boat, okay? Not trying to be insensitive, not trying to be unempathetic or anything like that, but the last time that there was a virus and Trump was in office, it didn't bode well for any of us. So I get I'd be scared too, and I know that you think you're healthy, but stay on that fucking boat. Okay? Don't be going anywhere. I'm gonna go wash my hands now.
Hey, them people stuck on that ship in the middle of the ocean, I feel bad for them. I do. But sometimes people gotta sacrifice for the greater good. You know what I'm saying? This America. You feel me? So sometimes people gotta sacrifice. You know what I'm saying? And like, I feel like we just gotta like just drop them off some food or something and then let them just build their own little community. But don't let them niggas come back to this land. I'm sorry. Do not let them come back. Period. Nice knowing y'all. Shit.
The WHO has now confirmed they have started contact tracing for the flight that the woman was on. So no medical evacuation. Nobody knew that hantavirus was even a factor in this case yet. People are still in contact with this couple. And she wasn't made to leave this trip. Her husband passed away. She was flying her husband home. She gets to the airport and passes out, goes to the hospital. She passes away. Nobody knows this woman has hantavirus. So everybody before on that ship, everybody at that airport, everybody on that flight, and now this ship is fixing to be able to dock in Spain, and they're negotiating whether or not they're going to let these people off the ship. Are they going to have to quarantine? It was a 5 to 6 hour flight that this woman was on. I mean, the hospital, how many people was she in contact? Did she share a room with somebody? Nobody knew she had hantavirus. Do you guys understand the extremes of this? So while nobody has confirmed this is the Andes version of the human contact, this pretty much confirms it, because why else would they do the contact tracing on that entire flight? Because it can be contacted by human.
Are you worried about the Hantavirus cruise ship? Are you worried that we might end up in another lockdown? Let me explain. There isn't going to be another lockdown, at least not here in the United States. There are a number of people in Trump's inner circle who are absolutely 100% behind the idea of reducing the surplus population, as Charles Dickens once wrote in A Christmas Carol. They understand that there are 342 million Americans living here today, and they want about 100 million Americans to be living here. We see this first from Stephen Miller, who is, the jump scare, no surprise. This is an older article from February of this year. Let me show you exactly where the quote comes from, how I can verify this information. At the bottom of that Forbes article I just showed you, it says, last year the New York Times reported, quote, in one meeting during the 2024 campaign, Mr. Trump said that if it were up to Mr. Miller, there would be only 100 million people in this country, and they would all look like Mr. Miller, meaning white. So let's be clear. Up until this point, Stephen Miller, then DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, and now the new DHS Secretary Markwayne Mullin, have been trying to reduce the population of the United States by doing sort of like let's just call it what it is, a racial cleansing, right? They're going after people who are immigrants and or look like immigrants and or sound like immigrants. And by immigrants, I should probably correct myself, I mean non-white people. White people stole this land. Anyway, that's a different TikTok. The point being, they are deporting people or just caging them up somewhere. All of that being done, all of that being said, they feel, they being this regime, the overhead, the wizards behind the curtain, feel that this is not happening fast enough. And so I need to introduce you to our next figure who, by the way, trigger warning, this is incredibly dystopian and it also talks about genocide. So if you need to scroll. This vile-looking creature from the Black Lagoon with lifeless eyes is Curtis Yarvin. And if you don't know who he is, it is
it's a can of worms. Be careful with your Google searches. But what you need to know here is that he is a techno-authoritarian. That is the government system he believes in. And what that is essentially the most dystopian version of a country you could imagine. We are talking about the elimination of most of the federal government. We saw a dismantling of that at the beginning of this term, by the way, with the Doge cuts. Anyway, so taking away the federal government, having quote unquote CEOs at the top, people like himself and others that I will mention, and then running this country through a dictatorship that is highly IT optimized, which in the most basic of terms means mass surveillance. It means facial recognition everywhere. It means things like censorship and internet blackouts, and using all of that to control not just domestic populations, but also those that are international, abroad. So it is very, very dystopian. And one of the most disgusting pieces of Curtis Yarvin's ideology is found in an article. I want to show the end of that article, and then I'm going to show you the top. It has to be introduced that way. Trust me, I'm getting to my source. This is out of the New Republic. I'll show you all of that information in 1 second. The article says, in 2008, a software developer in San Francisco named Curtis Yarvin, writing under a pseudonym, proposed a horrific solution for people he deemed, quote, not productive. Convert them into biodiesel, that's real, which can help power the Mooney buses, which is a system of transportation. After saying all of that insanity, Yarvin says that he was, quote, just kidding, but then continued his statement, saying, quote, the trouble with the biodiesel solution is that no one would want to live in a city whose public transportation was fueled even just partly by the distilled remains of its late underclass, meaning the killed, quote unquote, unproductive members of society, according to Curtis Yarvin. However, it helps us describe the problem we are trying to solve. And then he says, our goal, in short, is a humane alternative to genocide. It's right there. Take a screenshot if you want. He then concluded in the statement that the best humane alternative to genocide is to virtualize these people, imprison them in permanent solitary confinement, where, to avoid making them insane, they would be connected to an immersive virtual reality interface so they could, quote, experience a rich, fulfilling life in a completely imaginary world. Yarvin's disturbing manifestos, and this is very important, earned him influential followers, chief among them tech billionaire Peter Thiel and his one-time Silicon Valley protege, then Senator J.D. Vance. And this is why I had to wait to show you the New Republic article. Because this is where Vance gets his weird, terrifying, techno-authoritarian ideas. Because he was Peter Thiel's protege who was friends with Curtis Yarvin, and Peter Thiel ultimately introduced J.D. Vance to President Donald Trump. The day that J.D. Vance meets Donald Trump face-to-face for the first time, he is quite literally ushered into Trump's Mar-a-Lago office by Peter Thiel, who, by the way, will bring Yarvin's twisted techno-authoritarianism to the White House. But this is even better than they imagined, because now they could potentially have a pandemic on their hands. And this time, it is a virus with a mortality rate of nearly 40%. Your survival chances of this are much, much lower when it comes to this versus COVID-19. Share this with somebody so they know. And if something does happen, mask up. Don't listen to them. Listen to the rest of the world and listen to health experts. You can subscribe to the World Health Organization newsletter online. That's a good resource.
Okay, so you saw everything. It is very serious. Remember that you're not going to hear everything on the news because they often don't want to create a panic. Okay, hopefully everybody is okay on the ship and they will quarantine people and just get everything under control. Okay, so hopefully everything works out. That is it for today's video. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell and click all notifications. And I will be back with more stories to let you know what's going on in our world, baby. Okay, you all take care. Click the bell if you hit all notifications so you know when I'm live and when I'm uploading. You all take care. Bye, everybody.